Welcome to Don't Know Much About Football,
the podcast where football meets finance and foreign policy.
And the commentary comes with culture. With your co-hosts, Carla Marcelo,
Sarah Hamilton,
and Ian Stoner. Hey everybody, welcome back to Don't Know Much About Football. We're glad to be back with you. It's November. The Premier League 25-26 season is well underway. Champions League is well underway. We're continuing to have conversations about all things football, but today we are going to be speaking with Paul about Leeds United, one of the clubs that is in the Premier League this season, hasn't been seen there for a wee while, and we're keen to learn more because I don't know much about Leeds United. I don't know if Carlo knows much about them, and Leeds is one of those clubs that has a long, deep history that, and as Paul was telling us beforehand, is fascinating. Particularly for people like me. So I'm looking forward to jumping into that. But Paul, thanks for being here.
Yeah, great to be here. I'm excited to be invited, and yeah, love to share a few stories about the greatest club in soccer.
Excellent. Well, we're gonna call it football for the rest of the hour.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't know much about football.
It's got ingrained into me now. I've lived here for 15 years, so it's hard now to say football.
I know. Major League Soccer. But we're gonna use football as a general term.
Okay.
You've been here for 15 years, as you said, but you don't sound like you're from Kansas City. So maybe you could just give us a bit of a sense of your background, your roots. We'll dig into the club stuff in a moment, but then tell us kind of how you got here and kind of what brought you here, what your life is like now, and then we'll back into some of the specifics.
Absolutely. I grew up in Yorkshire, which is where Leeds is. Just west in a small village near the town of Hull, which is another city town, a couple of 100,000 people, but really a rugby town, not a football town. Was lived and brought up there, was a sports nut. I'm an absolute fanatic for many, many sports. Yes. Played football as a young boy. But then ended up going to a rugby school. So I played rugby. I actually played professional rugby. The first year that rugby went professional because it was an amateur sport.
Wow.
But always had that passion for football. And I grew up in the 70s, which we'll talk about in a bit, which was when Leeds really were the top club, probably in the world at the time. I then, my college, I went to Essex, which is in the south of the UK, just east of London. So I did 3 years there. I met a few American friends who were on study abroad and ended up doing a trip across to New York and fell in love with the US for lots of reasons and wanted to live in the US. So after I graduated, I actually took a gamble, came across, tried to find a job. Didn't have a visa, ended up working in New York in Greenwich Village
Fascinating.
As a bouncer, and I found a rugby team to play for.
Amazing, Paul.
My other claim to fame is I worked in a karaoke bar with Maria Bello. I don't know if you know Maria Bello. Oh. She was in Coyote Ugly.
The actress, yeah.
Wow. The actress, yeah. And we sang and tended bar together. So anyway, then after being an illegal in the US, I went back to the UK, got into the technology profession, still had this passion to move across to the US. Was with a startup in the software business, running their international business, living in London with my current wife, Jenny, who I met there. We were both working for Hewlett Packard. Then I did this startup, had a lot of success, and that company then sponsored me to move here in 2010. When we got acquired by Lexmark. Cool. So that was my path to the US, and I've lived in Overland Park, Kansas ever since. I have two boys from my first marriage who live in Leeds together, close to the ground. Nice. And I have two boys here in Kansas who were 2 and 4 when they moved. So they're really American now. We're citizens. And one's at KU, and one has just committed to be a pitcher at University of Arizona. So
wow,
that's the exciting thing in the Hunt household right now.
Excellent. So proud sporting family, and we must talk more about rugby
and professional singer.
And
I also
yeah,
heard
there's a lot to
professional
get into.
singer. Okay.
Lots of stories about being a bouncer in the village as well. So
Yeah.
maybe we can have a second session on some of those stories.
Yeah, maybe.
I just want to give a quick shout out to my old roommate when I was at Arizona State, not U of A, but Arizona State for my third year as a student, Andy from Hull, and also my English teacher, Mrs. Collins, who I assume is still around from 20 years, 25 years ago. And she was a big Philip Larkin,
Oh, yeah. The
so
poet laureate.
poet laureate from Hull.
Yeah.
So, um, Paul, maybe give us a sense of what life was like and where sort of Leeds and Yorkshire kind of fits in the British kind of
Yeah.
the British
So,
culture and history.
yeah, Yorkshire is a kind of has its own identity. Um, and yeah, Leeds have a song, YRA, Yorkshire's Republican Army. It's famous for sports. Like the New York Yankees, we've won more cricket championships than anybody else. A lot of good cricketers came from Yorkshire. Very blue collar, a lot of mining towns. Obviously, the mining industry has seen better times and there's not much of it left anymore. But that bred a lot of very strong personalities and strong physiques, which played well into sports. And you know, it's there's a lot of good York sportsmen that come from Yorkshire. I think when they do the Olympic medals table, Yorkshire does its own medals table, and I think they won more than the rest of Great Britain combined. So it's a bit like the Texas of the
Sure.
UK in a way. But it's actually made up of four ridings. They call them the ridings. So there's the East Riding, the North Riding, the West Riding, and the South Riding. They all have their own peculiarities. If you remember the Full Monty, the movie that was in the Sheffield, which is a steel town,
Ah,
and that's in the South Riding. Uh, Part of Hull is in East Riding, but also they'd shifted the postcodes and called it Humberside for a while. But my mum and dad always taught me to write East Riding on my letters in the days when he used to write letters, and I was very proud of coming from Yorkshire. And Leeds is due west. There's a road called the M62, which connects up Hull, Leeds, Manchester, and Liverpool, that kind of corridor. So Leeds is about a 45-minute drive from Hull. And yes, I was born 68, and so 70s, you know, just starting to get into sports. And Leeds United were, as I say, one of the top teams, and you can look it up if you don't believe me. Lots of championships and cups, and we had a manager called Don Revy at the time. And Hull City is the team in Hull.
Mhm.
Had never played in the top league in all their history. They'd been around a long time, and as I say, it was really a rugby town. So I kind of played rugby union and followed rugby league. There's
Mhm.
two types of rugby. Um, but I had my mum was a Hull City fan. She grew up as a Hull City fan. She tells me she used to throw sweets at the goalkeeper from behind. She was in love with the goalkeeper called Billy Bly at the time. Um,
love it.
but I had an auntie Christine who was a Leeds fan, and she was the person that kind of ignited my love of Leeds. I think the first game I remember was the 73 FA Cup final where we lost 1-0 to Sunderland, where the
Wow.
goalkeeper put up an incredible performance. Despite us dominating the game, we lost. And then I think I went to my first game with Auntie Christine and my dad, and I actually went with my school coach, came with us. He was a Liverpool fan. And Carla, you'll be interested, it was against
Yeah,
Liverpool, who were also very strong at the time.
sure.
And my first game, we lost 3-0. So, but I've been a Leeds fan ever since.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
Paul, when I was a kid growing up, the analog for me was it was the 90s, okay? And Michael Jordan and the Bulls were like winning every NBA championship, okay? And as a kid, we just felt on cloud nine every day. And I'm curious, when you think back to the 70s as a kid, what was the culture like there? Was everyone wearing lead shirts at the school? You know what I'm saying? Were
Yeah.
all the parents talking about football? Like, what was the vibe then out because there was so much winning going on?
Yeah, it was huge in the 70s. And I mean everybody there's tons of Leeds fans in Hull and all over Yorkshire. It was really, there's some of the pretty big clubs, but Leeds has always been the biggest. And when you win, you not only get the genuine fans, you get the bandwagon fans as well.
Sure.
But football in the 70s, and we can talk about the movie The Damned United and the book. Was a different sport. There was a lot more physical contact. There's those flair players like George Best that didn't really train and got by on amazing natural talent. We had
Uh-huh.
one of them. We had one of them briefly. Frank Worthington was another one of those characters in the 70s.
So
There's a lot of them. It was a different game.
would you see the players out because of that, Paul? You talk about it as a different time, were the players out in the community in
Yeah, I
some
mean,
ways, and
wages
interact
weren't
with
what
them?
they were
Eh.
today, and it's a shame for some of those players. I mean, you feel for them. A lot of them had to get jobs after they retired, and
Ah, I see what you're saying. Uh-huh.
and you hear stories about them getting the bus to the ground with the supporters. Traveling traveling to the game on a bus.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that stuff I don't think we hear about these days, right?
no,
It's a corporate affair all around is how things are
absolutely.
usually handled, right?
Yeah, no sponsorship boxes or anything like that back then.
No hospitality
Uh,
seats.
no, and of course it was the height of hooliganism
Uh-huh.
in the UK as well, which was
Yeah, talk about that.
yeah. So every club had its crew, different names, and they'd arranged to meet up before the games to fight. It was kind of planned.
Like
Um,
opposing clubs,
Opposing
like fan
clubs,
groups, right? Yeah.
So
yeah,
Okay.
the
like
name
Leeds
of
and Hull
them,
City or whoever,
yeah,
Liverpool and Leeds would.
City Psychos, West Ham had the Inner City firm, the Millwall were always famous for their hooligans, but Leeds have a pretty tough reputation as well. Remember one story of them taking over the West Ham pub that all the West Ham fans used to go to before the game, which ended up in a riot. But yeah, it was going to games you had to watch yourself back then, and
Ah.
a lot of fans travel to games on the train.
Hmm.
So it's kind of the opposing fans would be waiting there at the train station for these fans to come off
Oh, wow.
ready for
Yeah.
battle.
Yeah.
Hull City is one of the few clubs at the time had its own train station. They had a stop right behind the Cop, where you could go to the game. It's not there anymore because they changed stadium, but
Yeah.
that was an interesting thing.
Was that just convenient, or did it kind of add some? Did it prevent some of the things that might happen if people had to travel from the center of town to the stadium? Or
Yeah, I think maybe that was probably by design so that they could ship them into more of a controlled area at the ground.
Mhm.
Booth Free Park was the old ground before they moved to the KCOM Stadium. Um, Hull was the only place in the UK that had its own telephone network, and that was my first job for Kingston Communications.
Wow.
It was the only council-run telephone company.
Hmm.
And then they went public and funded the new stadium. So,
Art.
Amazing.
So uh, maybe we could go back a bit because one of the interesting things we've talked about with various clubs and we've talked to fans either born in the shadow of the stadium essentially or people in the US who've become fans in more recent years and but deep fans all the same. Uh, and we talked about the longer history of clubs, and it's really interesting to kind of get a sense of this where Leeds United comes from in terms of its DNA, and there might be different eras that inject new DNA in, but maybe you could just kind of give us a sense of some of that history.
yeah, I should have researched when they were founded. They've been around a long time, but they only really started to get fame and fortune sort of towards the 60s, 70s. That
Okay.
was the
Okay.
heyday, but really the start of Leeds being a big club. Before that, they weren't. It was all around, really around Don Revy.
Hmm.
Went on to become the England manager when he left Leeds. And we could talk about that later. The Brian Clough 44 days
Hmm.
was a really interesting piece of history. But, one of the foundations of, very disciplined, very tough, very organized. We've always been called Dirty Leeds, and we're still called Dirty Leeds now. But they played great football as well, but they were tough. Players like Norman Bite Your Legs Off Hunter, who was a famous centre back, played a lot
Very
for England
descriptive
and Leeds.
nickname.
Yeah, he had a fight with Kevin Keegan at Wembley once, quite famous. But we also, Billy Bremner was another one. He's probably my all-time favourite player and a fellow Scotsman of Ian's. And we built that spine on his recruiting of Scottish players. So we've always had these really strong Scottish links, Billy Bremner, Eddie Gray and Andy Gray, Joe Jordan, Gordon McQueen, David Harvey. They were kind of in the 70s heyday. And then Eddie Gray has two sons, Harry and Archie. Archie was with us. We had to sell him when we went down from the Premiership last time.
Yeah.
Well, he stayed in the Championship, but we didn't get promotion, so we had to let him go. He went to Tottenham, but his brother's just come through the youth academy, and Eddie Gray still goes to all the Leeds games today. And
Amazing.
yeah, so there's been those
That's
close
so
connections.
So yeah, would love to dig into some of that. I'm looking at some of the history here, and it looks like, as you said, it was that was it
Revy.
Revy,
Yeah.
those years in the six when he came in the 60s or 61, I
Yes.
think it was, and then so Leeds had been in the second division and up and
Mhm.
down sort of fairly regularly.
Yeah.
There's even some interesting history um, going way back, which we can get into around them being disbanded at one point back in the early 20th century. But then post World War II, it looks like the second division, but bounced into the first division.
Hmm.
But it wasn't until the 60s when they really reached the top.
Kicked on.
And
Yeah.
then that was they were up there until the early to mid 80s,
Yes.
and then back up in the 90s, and
Yep.
in the 2000s back down again into the second and even down into
Hmm.
the lower
Yeah. The
division.
dark days, the Peter
Yeah.
Ridsdale days.
So
Yeah.
we maybe we can touch on that a bit because you'll be able to
Yep.
speak to the experience of that. But more recently have been back up in the Premier Division as it is now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
relegated once more recently, but back up again. So
Yeah.
um, you know, I think it's for me as somebody who hasn't been paying attention to football very much
Hmm.
until recently, and similarly maybe to newer fans in the US,
Yeah.
you know, everybody knows Man United. They probably know Liverpool, Chelsea,
Hmm.
City, some other clubs, but Leeds has that pedigree of being one of the top
Yeah.
flight teams, and for long periods, people's lives, your entire life, really should be at that level, has that
Yeah.
sort of standing and legacy.
Yeah. You'll hear a lot of people say, pundits, other teams, the Premiership needs Leeds United. It's one of the biggest clubs, in the country, in Europe, with a proud tradition, and it's one of the biggest cities in the UK. And they could sell out a 70,000. We've got 38,000 capacity now. Sold it out when we were in the second division, first division, championship, whichever it was. They're actually got plans to rebuild and expand the capacity, which is something they need to kind of stay up with the financial side of football these days. But yeah, it's kind of galling as a Leeds fan to see, all the new fans in the US that don't know about Leeds and don't know the tradition and supporting Man City and Arsenal and Liverpool and Tottenham and, the scum
yeah.
of United,
Eh.
as we call them.
But as you say, it's a great history, and interestingly, its owner is now uh,
American.
American. So it's another one of those clubs that has
Yeah.
um, the attention from the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes.
The corporate structure we don't need to get into of who owns what, but you know, tell us about that. What's it been like to kind of have new owners and
We're a skeptical bunch, we're a cynical bunch, and we've had a lot of bad owners in the time since Ridsdale bankrupted
Mhm.
the club. Ken Bates being one. I don't know if you heard of Ken Bates. Famous old curmudgeon who owned
Oh,
Chelsea, sold Chelsea, bought Chelsea when it was in the doldrums for £1, I think, and sold it
wow.
for a lot of money to Abramovich. And then he came in and bought Leeds cheap after we went bankrupt and didn't do anything for us. And then we had a couple of crazy Italian owners. I'm prepared to give him a chance. We were all disappointed at the transfer window that we didn't spend
Uh,
more, but admittedly, with the restrictions, it's not easy. But it's tough when we were in the championship 2 years ago. This week we played, last weekend we played, week before we played West Ham and Somerville. We have a great song about Somerville. We had to sell him. And then the
yeah.
year back, we're in the Premiership and he's playing for someone else and not playing that well. And then we play Tottenham and Harry Gray's on the bench and, Harry Gray could be playing for us. And so I'm just hoping we can muscle through this season because you really are at such a huge disadvantage to the top team. It's tough. I wish there was a salary cap and it was a bit more like the NFL. And I love that system rather than the major leagues. But yeah, I'm an optimist, so I'll get behind them and give them a chance.
Good. So
Yeah.
tell us about the current club and what if you were trying to pitch the club to a 49ers fan or
Hmm.
someone from anywhere else in the country, why should how would you sort of sell it and position it for them to become a diehard fan like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I would talk about the tradition, obviously, and the history, of which is a proud one. I mean, we were robbed in the 1974. We've never won a European Cup, but it's a very famous game. We lost to Bayern Munich with a
Hmm.
referee they think was bribed. Lorimer, Peter Lorimer, 90 miles an hour was always the chant from the fans. Lorimer had the hardest shot there's ever been in football. He scored one from about 25 yards out, and they disallowed it for an offside, which wasn't offside. And then Alan Clark went through on goal with a clear penalty, he got his legs taken under him from behind, and we didn't get a penalty. So we always feel we should have won that game and still
Hmm.
chant European champions, champions of Europe at games.
Wow.
And there's also the famous game against Celtic in the 69-70 semi-final European Cup. I think you hadn't
Mhm.
maybe heard of that, Ian, but that's still the
Yep.
record crowd for a British game, 136,500 fans at Hampden
Incredible.
Park, Scotland for
What?
the second leg.
Yeah.
How
And
did
they
they
say there
fit?
was more than that. That was just what
Where
was
were they
recorded.
fitted?
It's all
How could you
standing,
fit?
presumably, in the terraces.
Oh my
Standing,
gosh.
squashed together. Yeah. Um, so some of that history. Um, we won the last ever Division One, 91, 92, before it became the Premiership,
Hmm.
under Sergeant Wilco, Howard Wilkinson. Um, had an incredible midfield again with two Scotsmen in the middle there, Gordon Strachan and Gary McAllister, with Gary Speed and David Batty, who's another combative midfielder. Um, so, talk about some of that, and then we made it to another Champions League semi-final, which I went to in 2000, 2001, where we lost to Valencia. I went to the first game of the Champions League in Barcelona. We lost 4-0, and it didn't seem like we'd get to the semi-final at the time, but we did. Played a lot of good teams along the way. Had a great season, and
Sounds so fun.
So this
yeah,
is the time to become a Leeds United fan, especially if you're an American of Scottish extraction.
right.
But you don't want to pick Liverpool because you're not a glory hunter and they just won the championship.
Yeah, if you want an authentic club, yeah.
But they've got that
Wow.
pedigree of
Paul
it's
says
not.
authentic club. All
Yeah.
right.
They've got that pedigree. I'll tell you a little story. I have a friend here called Steve Larson. And his son Drew is a friend of my son, and he's been a Arsenal fan all his life, and I always give him a hard time. And he like looks down his nose at Leeds, and they made a trip to London this year, and they went to the Arsenal Leeds game, and Arsenal absolutely hammered us 5-0. But he said the Leeds fans were 10 times louder than the Arsenal fans,
That's important.
and they
But
had
Arsenal
way
fans are
better.
so quiet anyway. In
Yeah,
general.
Highbury
But
Library. And they had the best songs of it. We have the best songs of anybody, and I couldn't repeat them here, but it's
That is a big selling point is the songs. I
yeah,
think if you
yeah,
got good songs and if you say that literally you can't repeat them here, then you know it's going to be a good time. Um, but Paul, I'm a Southern California guy, Paul, and
yeah.
we're also into the looks of things, Paul, as much
Uh-huh.
as footballing is important.
Yeah,
Talk to us a little bit about the Leeds crest and the kits. Like
yeah,
what are the
yeah.
colors? Like why are they
Well,
important?
that's a great question, Carlo, and actually goes back to the Don Revy era because he changed it to all white.
Oh,
We're famous for playing in all white, and he
oh,
did that as a tribute to Real Madrid.
hmm.
ah,
Um, so our home strip has always been all white, and we've had some other horrible kits in the meantime, like most clubs. But my favorite kit, and I'm wearing the
yeah.
yellow
Tell us about
today.
it.
So this was introduced in the mid 70s and was my favorite kit, and they never reintroduced it until last season. So
Oh,
this was the away kit, and they redid this badge.
uh-huh.
The peacock is the emblem, but
Got
this
it.
is kind of another emblem we use. And I have a picture of myself in the 70s in this kit, which I found in my mom's attic not so long ago, and I was
All right,
showing
send
my
it to us.
sons. So I was really pleased when they released it. Another thing about our kit that was different at the time in the 70s, and I used to have these when I was playing, they had sock hold-ups with a flap down the side with your number on it, which I've always
Oh,
they had little tassels along the bottom and the player's number. They were so cool, and no one's ever
I have
Reminds me
not
of
seen that.
if you were a Scot wearing a kilt, you'd have flashes on your socks.
Yes,
Is that
yes,
maybe
they're like
connected?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it had your number on it, so it was.
Wow.
I had number 9, Joe Jordan, because I played center forward. Um, so
So
Very
the
cool.
peacocks, where's the origin of the peacocks? Like, where's that? Are there actually peacocks in Leeds?
uh, there probably are. I mean, they're all over. They're not from the UK. They're not native to the UK, but we
Sure,
have a
sure.
lot of
Yeah, same in LA.
non-indigenous
Yeah.
species. Um, but there is, interestingly, outside the ground, the closest ground to the pub's called the closest pub to the ground is called the Old Peacock, which is where
Ah.
everybody congregates before the game.
Oh, that's key
Um,
information.
Also, a
Okay.
famous fish and chip shop, Gravely's outside. Best fish and chips in the country are from Leeds as well. We haddock, not cod, as
Uh-huh.
our fish.
I see.
So
Okay.
that's another reason to be a fan. Good fish and chips and great Indian food. A big Indian
There you go.
population. So really
Love
good
it.
meals.
No, food is very important. Food around the grounds is very, very important to hear about, what's the typical match day food? I
Yeah,
love to hear about that. So,
pies and peas and hot bovril. You guys
wait,
have
what's that? Wait.
hot
Hot
bovril.
what?
I have it on my toast as well. I still to this day I have a few
Really?
British things I buy online. Bovril is like a beef extract. So you've got
Okay.
Vegemite or Marmite
Yeah.
is a vegetable extract, but Bovril is a
Oh.
beef extract, very thick, brown, sticky liquid. And I put it on my toast. Good source of protein, but you can also mix it with hot water, and that's hot Bovril, which on a
Oh,
cold
wow.
winter's day is great. Warms
And
you up.
you can get that at do you get that at the stadium when you're going to?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. A lot of the stadiums also
Hot Bovril
hot
and maybe
Bovril.
a pie or something.
Yeah, maybe a pie
Jeez.
and a pint.
Yeah.
And a pint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Still no tacos, I hear in England. Still the
No,
tacos are still, yeah.
but they've just introduced the self-serve Guinness pumps,
Oh,
which
I like the
helps
sound of
a
that.
lot with the lines, a lot faster. Yeah,
I like the sound of
That's
that.
important.
yeah,
I'd love to just dwell for a moment on because you mentioned the kit and we can see it here. What I'm seeing here is that Leeds has always had kind of an ahead of its time approach to brand and marketing, and so that maybe do you know the story of the that logo that's on your shirt or
I know it was designed in the 70s. I don't know who did it. You know, we've we've used the peacock, we've used an owl as well.
hmm
And everybody has their favorites and it gets debated. I think you know, marketing wise, I think I went into the suites. I had a friend who his dad had a suite, back in it was the first time I'd been to corporate hospitality, and my mind was blown. And that was probably in the 80s when I was at college. But they have a good store in the center of Leeds now. They have a really good, as well as the one at the ground. But it was always a treat to go to the one at the ground and buy stuff because you didn't have online shopping back in the day when I was growing up. So
Sure.
you'd have to make the visit to Leeds to buy anything. I remember having Leeds United swimming trunks and pajamas and
Everything.
anything with Leeds on it.
well that badge it's called the smiley. Is that would
Yes.
you would call that the smiley? And it is
Ah,
the L and the U, which I'm trying to
Yes.
figure out which fits which,
It's the
but it's been rotated.
there's the L here and the
Oh, I see.
U
Got it.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's somewhat abstract, but it also looks a bit like a football.
It does.
Yeah,
Yes,
good.
it
Well,
does.
look out for that. Tell us a bit more. We've done quizzes in the past. I don't think we'll do a quiz
Yeah.
here, but just tell us about the stadium, where it is, what it's like as a stadium. You mentioned there was an old
yeah.
the station. Is this one seems fairly large by British stadium standards, but is it modern? What's it like?
It needs updating. Yeah, the cop is the low fields end, which is, where all the singing and the rowdiest fans are. The west stand is where the benches are and the the top brass and sponsors, and then the east stand um, is the newest stand and the highest is like a cantilevered stand. The ground's called Elland Road and it's pretty close to the centre of Leeds. But it's tough getting there on match days, particularly when it's always sold out. We're the biggest city in Europe not to have an underground or metro system,
Hmm.
which makes it very
Oh,
hard. Another interesting, useless fact. But they're talking about maybe adding one when they build to cater for the new capacity in the new stadium because they're talking 60,000. But it's going to be on the same site. We had a good training ground called Thorpe Arch, which is in North Yorkshire, which is where my wife's mum's from, a place called Boston Spa. They have really good bitter there.
Mm.
Yorkshire's the home of Tetley's. There's a new Tetley's museum, and I actually heard family dog when she grew up was called Revy. Um,
ah,
so
It's a good name.
there's a Leeds connection on both sides of the family. But
Fantastic.
yeah, Thorpe Arch is the training ground, and we actually lost that for a while because one of the owners, Ken Bates, I think, sold it to developers, but they managed to buy it back, thankfully. So we have a good youth setup, which has produced some good players, thankfully, the likes of Harry Kewell and in the 90s, and more recently the Gray brothers.
Great. I like a good pint of bitter. So Yorkshire
Oh
bitter.
yeah,
I was in York on holiday for a weekend this summer,
right,
a larger trip,
beautiful.
and had a few Yorkshire bitters.
Yeah, I remember going to York once to see Hull City, and I didn't really have a dog in the fight. I went with a few school friends, and we pulled up in the car park and got out of the car, and we were, I don't know, maybe 13, 14 years old. And
Mhm.
just as we came out, there was a gang of Hull City skinheads coming along, and they
oh
were like, "Who are
boy.
you with?" And we're like, "Oh, Hull City." And
Eh,
they're like, "You come with us. We're going in the York end to cause some trouble." And we're like, "Oh no."
uh,
Did you manage to duck out, or
We did manage to sneak away at a good point in time. So yeah, it was a close shave.
literally with the skinhead?
Yes.
Uh, Excellent. So you've been in the States for uh,
Yeah.
15 years. Tell us a bit about, you know, life in general, but you've mentioned Sporting KC and uh, the kind of
Yeah.
the soccer kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
development in that period. What's it been like to be a football fan
It's
and see the MLS and NWSL kind of grow up in?
Yeah. Well, I came to KC 15 years. I came at a good point in KC sporting history because we've won World Series, national championships at basketball, Super Bowls. It's been
Hmm.
a golden era for Kansas City, but football has really got strong roots.
Yep.
And it used to be the KC Wizards, and they played at Arrowhead in 85,000 capacity stadium and no atmosphere because there's
Yeah.
10,000 people. But
Yeah.
there's a business in Kansas City called the Cerner company, which is a big healthcare software and
Mhm.
services business, who sold to Oracle a couple of years ago. But there's a guy called Cliff Illig, billionaire, who founded that company, big football fan who invested in Sporting KC, and they built a new purpose-built stadium on the Kansas side because Kansas City is split between two states, if people don't know that,
Yeah.
Kansas and Missouri. There's a lot of redevelopment, these star bonds and investment, and a whole shopping outlet and a new speedway and a 25,000 purpose-built football stadium for Sporting KC. And they have a great atmosphere. They sing a lot of songs. They have a drum that's called Blue Hell, the end of the ground. And the standard's not quite what you're used to if you've been brought up on Premiership, but the passion is there and the grassroots are
Great to
there
hear.
and great youth
Great to
setup.
hear.
And Sporting KC has a very big network of youth clubs and there's some great football here. And now we have the KC Current, the women's team,
Yes.
which Patrick Mahomes, his wife Brittany's on the owner list and the board, and they've done very well. And we have the first purpose-built, dedicated women's football stadium, soccer stadium in Kansas City. So
Amazing.
everybody's proud of that, and we've made a lot of investments. Actually, another story. So Clark Hunt, the owner of the Chiefs, he actually owns the team in Dallas as well. So his father, Lamar Hunt, who founded the NFL and brought the team from Texas here, has always been a big football. But so they were initially sort of invested in helping get football going, and that's continued. And they've been part of the committee to bring the World Cup here.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
we had to build a new airport, which just opened a couple of years ago. We got great new roads and lots of good infrastructure as a result to improve our chances of the bid. And I think we're one of only four cities in the UK and the only in the US and the only non-top tier one city to have 5 games, I think, for the World Cup.
Yeah, you have a bunch of matches.
Yep.
Famously, Chicago passed up on
Yep.
being one of the host cities and making them as available for that.
Yep.
Here in Los Angeles, so looking forward to that. Paul, I'm so curious though, all the infrastructure around football going on in Kansas City. Sure, it's a sports town, but how is it that this sport is taking hold of the town? Like why is it blossoming there? What are the ingredients that make it
Uh,
blossom in Kansas
I
City?
won't quite say it's taken hold of the town. The Chiefs are a pretty big deal
It's
here,
fair
but
play.
I've heard of
I
them.
Fair play.
would. I think one of the things that is there's a really strong youth system, and it's
Hmm.
for boys and girls, which we never had in the UK. I mean, you were ahead of
Uh,
us in terms of women's
yes.
football,
Yes.
Yeah.
light years ahead of us until recently. So I think making it inclusive and including the whole family in that turns
Cool.
them into fans, right? And then
Yeah.
I think the other factor that helped football expand here when you talk about the suburbs is the fear of head injuries in football. There was all the
Ah,
CTE stuff going on.
yeah.
And, here where I live, they were struggling some schools were struggling to get a football team,
Wow.
American football team,
NFL
because
team.
the
Yeah.
parents
NFL
didn't
team.
want them messing their
Interesting.
heads up. So, what are you going to do instead? We'll play play
Interesting.
football, soccer.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
yeah. But you really are kind of in the thick of it there, it sounds like, and having
Yes.
the stadium, it looks beautiful. I was just looking it up. It's the CPKC Stadium, is that correct?
yeah, yeah,
Canadian Pacific is the sponsor, the naming
yeah.
rights sponsor. And yeah, it looks really nice. It's kind of the right size because it's big enough for a like
Yeah.
um, KC Current are number one in the
Mhm.
NWSL right now. So,
Oh,
so you need to if you're at that
it's
level, you need to draw a big crowd, but it's not, as you said, 30,000 or 40,000 or 80,000, where if you're at 7, 8,000, 10,000, it's just pointless because
yeah,
there's no atmosphere, which
perfect.
I've seen in other
So
stadiums.
my son, who's at KU, his roommate, his sister played for KU, and then she went to play for Virginia, and then last season she signed for the team in Portland, the professional team,
The
and
Portland
came,
Thorns.
yeah, and came to play here. Um, and so William was going to the game, and he's like, "Can you get me a ticket, Dad?" I'm thinking, "Okay, yeah, that'll be fine. It's not like these extortionate ticket prices." It was $350 for a ticket to go see Casey
Wow.
Curran. They sell
Wow.
out every game. Yeah,
Wow.
Cheaper than the Chiefs, I suppose.
Incredible.
a
That's
little bit, a little
incredible.
bit. Chiefs
Good for
fans are
them.
spoiled, so the ticket prices have they're not as high as they were because we expect to win and just wait for the playoffs now.
Oh, I see.
Ah, yeah.
A little bit.
But Paul, as you know, sports, things come in cycles, right? Your
Yeah.
team, your club is gonna have some dynastic moment,
Yeah.
but it's rare to just be there for, I mean, right? Like
No, no.
teams are always falling off, and we're always recalling, like, I grew up a Chicago Bears fan in the NFL,
Yeah.
right? So like we're still
Yeah.
thinking about olden times, you know?
Yeah, and you're so close. I mean, you look back at Leeds. We made that semi-final in 2001, and what they did to finance that was they factored future revenue and ticket sales to loan money. So it was
Ah,
really a football equivalent of Bowie bonds. Do you remember the Bowie bonds? He sold his catalog and future
Mhm.
revenues to raise a lot of money. Ridsdale did that and then bought, Rio Ferdinand, and we were just buying all
yeah,
sorts of players, and it
stacked.
was
Yeah.
great as long as you're winning. And we missed out on the Champions League by 1 point, which, there's a lot of revenue for getting to the
Yep.
Champions
Yes.
League. And the business
Yes.
plan assumed we were going to make it. We didn't, and then we just cratered and went all the way down to the third division. So we're back now, but it's been a
Yeah.
long, hard road.
But management is important, is what you're
Very,
talking about, right?
very.
And even when you're winning, there's pressure to do more. And
Hmm.
sometimes, right, it can be
Yep,
mismanaged in
yep,
that, there's still risk taking going on
yep,
in what you're
yep.
describing, right? So
100%.
yeah, I mean it's
100%.
just, yeah, just because you're winning doesn't make it necessarily easier to keep going, because you
No,
still got to take risks to stay at the top.
yeah, 100%.
So could we talk a bit about the current season, current
Yeah.
was get a sense of the manager, who should we be paying attention to? Who are you
Yeah.
excited about? Where are the gaps in the club? We can go on and on, but let's start to
Yeah. So
give
the
people a sense of what to look
managers,
for.
we have a German manager, Daniel Farker.
Hmm.
He was with us for two championship seasons. We narrowly missed out the first. He was previously, he got Norwich promoted twice, and they
Ah,
went back down immediately both times, but he never had
yeah.
a lot of resources or money to spend. Uh, he's very open, seems very authentic. Um, has fallen in love with Leeds like the managers do. And we could actually
Oh,
talk about Marco Bielsa a bit. Maybe that was an interesting
yes.
one. But yeah, he had some great talent when we're in the championship. We were head and shoulders above everybody else, but that's a tough league. You're playing twice a week. The referees let tackles go that aren't allowed in the Premiership. So if you're the top dog, people are out to get you. It was nice being in the Championship because they don't have VAR. That was something that really the
Oh,
fans talked
yeah.
about a lot because you can celebrate a goal knowing
Yes, you
it's not going
can.
to be disallowed. Whereas now you
Yes,
don't
you
know whether it's
can,
a goal or
Paul.
not. It
You're
takes
holding
so
your
long.
breath.
Exactly.
Um,
That's very interesting.
yeah. So anyway, we're back. We won our first game against Everton. Fans were disappointed. We needed 10 badly. We have an American, Brandon Aronson, who none of the fans like. Um,
Oh, is
we
that
had a
right?
lot of players that had loan contracts that were allowed to go on loan when we got relegated last time, and he was one of them.
Hmm.
But we had to kind of take him back because no one else would buy him. So we really needed an attacker, a creator, a number 10. Um, we're pretty strong midfield defensively. Um, we have Jaden Bogle at right back, who's a great signing from Sheffield United. Ethan Ampadu's our captain. He leads by example. He's kind of a holding midfielder, gets forward a bit. We signed Dominic Calvert-Lewin on a free transfer from Everton. Played for England, scored goals in the past, but has always had an injured
Yes.
Hmm.
injury
Hmm.
history, so he's never really played regularly. Touch wood, he's doing okay for us now. We have Daniel James, who's a winger, who's one of the fastest players in the game, who spent some time at Man United and actually grew up near Hull, so he's a local lad, which is always nice. Um, but yeah, we needed one or two more players. We have Italian international Willie Nonto is another winger. He's been injured recently, and then Ao Tanaka, we signed him, a Japanese player, last year for 4 million. Amazing in the championship. Hasn't quite found the pace of the Premiership yet. We thought he was going to be a Premiership player. I think he still can be, but he's struggled a bit. Um, Calvert-Lewin's great at holding the ball up, but needs someone to play off him.
Hmm.
And yeah, so hoping in the January transfer window we can find something, but the goal is to kind of average more than a point a game, and that will keep us up. And we're just keeping our heads above water there at the moment.
Yep.
Uh,
So,
really, the only horror performance was the one at Arsenal so far this year.
so talk about what you're seeing. I mean, how are you feeling given the current field, the competition? Uh, what you've said
Yeah, you
about sort
look
of
for
getting a draw or better, but
yeah, you know there's going to be days where you're never going to win, right? You
yeah,
go to Arsenal or Liverpool, or Chelsea, or Man City. I mean, they're write-offs pretty much. You have very little hope. So you have to look at the fixture list and pick those games where you think you might scrape a point or maybe a win. And I think we're kind of in the not the upper middle below that top bracket, but kind of the lower middle. And then you look for it's an interesting season because usually the three promoted teams are the three relegated teams, but not so this year. So
Correct.
kind of interesting. So you're looking at who are going to be those three teams that are definitely going to get relegated. Well, Wolves look pretty rudderless at the moment.
yeah.
West Ham have struggled, although they got that win last week, which was scary. And
But Forest just had a big turnaround.
Forest have got a manager, Dyche, that is known for being good in a fight, and
Yes,
I think
Yeah.
that's
he's the
right.
right kind of manager in that situation. So yeah, Forest, Burnley, I think they're candidates.
Hmm.
Um, but it's frustrating when you look at small clubs, as I call them, like Brentford, Bournemouth, and Brighton, like to see them in the Premiership better than we are, and it galls me because they're really tiny clubs who don't
It's a
have the
different
tradition and the
No,
fans
please
and the
say it.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
let loose.
And
This
I,
is
and I
just
love promotion and relegation. Don't get me wrong; it does make it exciting. Um,
Pros and
but
cons to the
there's
systems. Yeah.
elements of the franchise system I like, where you get those big cities year in, year out.
As long as you're in at the start, it's all roses. But
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
great. And so
Uh,
we've got a match because Carlo, Sarah, and I are all Liverpool fans.
Hmm.
So we're playing at Leeds on December 6th. Is that right? Looking at this.
So, yeah, I know it's coming up pretty soon.
So it's the beginning of December,
Hmm.
9:30 a.m. Pacific,
Oh, we never do well in early kick. Well, no, that's 3:30 hour Pacific, so that's gosh, what time is that? 5:30 UK time.
5:30 UK.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And it sounds like Leeds, will be making some noise, trying to
Oh yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to intimidate. Luckily,
Yeah.
Liverpool makes its own noise and has its own cop. But yeah,
Yeah, it
it'll
will
be an
be.
interesting
It's
match.
a right. We Leeds fans still see it as a rivalry from the 70s because it was Man United and Liverpool and
Yeah.
Arsenal and Chelsea's probably the one we hate the most. And we have a great song. Uh, when I was just a boy, my mother said to me, "Should I be Chelsea? Should I be Leeds?" Here's what she said to me: "Wash your mouth out, son, and go get your father's gun and shoot the Chelsea scum. Shoot the Chelsea scum."
Ah,
That
I
is
love it.
colorful.
It is colorful. Oh, it's so
Yeah. So
funny.
you're playing Chelsea at home on the 3rd, just before that. So that'd be one to watch as well.
Yeah,
And
we've
then
got a
you've
tough
got
run.
United on January 4th.
Yeah,
And then you're playing at Anfield on the 1st of January. So
it's gonna be a long, lean winter. We better get
Yeah.
some points before
yeah.
that fixture list mounts up.
Well, some Bovril will keep you going.
Yeah, yeah, but hopefully we'll keep in range with a point a game, and then maybe we can do something in the transfer window, offload a couple of players to balance the books, and
So what would you do if you had whether it was 5 million, 10 million, whatever you would need to, like, where would you plug the
some creativity. We can't score goals in open play. We've done better at set pieces. We were terrible at corners for a long time. And I think with the modern trends to have a set piece specialist coach, right? I think we got one of those now, and we've scored from a couple of corners and free kicks. We signed a German, Anton Stack, who's a great player midfielder who's scored a couple.
great?
And
Okay.
but yeah, we need some creativity and someone that can play off Dominic Calvert-Lewin because he's a big guy, holds the ball up well, but when you're the only one up there, that doesn't do you much good for long. And yeah, other than that, I mean, defensively, yeah, we look pretty good.
Okay,
And yeah,
good. So we'll just check in on January 1st or 2nd and see where we
yes,
Yes.
transfer window, and
yes,
maybe be looking at an interesting story for Leeds and the rest of
yeah.
the.
I'm going back for Christmas. I
Oh,
forget
great.
who we're playing. I'm hoping I can get a ticket. It's really hard to get a ticket unless you have a membership. It's not like you can just buy tickets
Hmm.
online if you've got enough money. It's hard to get tickets.
Yeah.
But son's my 20-year-old at KU. He's a huge Leeds fan. He went back last year, got to see his first Leeds game. And then
Awesome.
my other son who lives in Leeds, his girlfriend's a Man City fan, and her brother's got tickets. He got to see Man City. And then he has a friend who's an Arsenal fan with season tickets, and he got to see Arsenal Spurs, which so he got three
Wow.
games last Christmas. But
Wow. Uh,
lucky boy.
Jeez.
Fun times.
Lucky
Where,
indeed.
where would you go in Kansas City if you wanted to catch Leeds playing and find some fellow fans?
Um, Usually my living room. I don't think there's not
Fair
many
play.
expats here. We have one set of expat friends who are Scousers. One's Liverpool, one's Everton. So we watch games with them. Although they had the Premiership morning thing here down at the Power and Light. We have the Power and Light where often when there's US games, national games, or World Cups, the TV go to show the
Yeah.
Power and Light's like an outdoor area. So there's an Irish bar there that there are some football fans kind of congregate at.
Okay. Well, we'll check that out next time we're in Kansas City
Yeah,
and let you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But
I'd
Paul,
love to
thanks very
join
much. This has
us.
been fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Super fun,
Good.
Paul.
Hope you did too.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of Don't Know Much About Football. the podcast for all fans, new and seasoned, who want to grow the sport and learn together.
If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and support us on Patreon. Your feedback and support grow our community.
If you're a part of a club, league, or fan community and want to be featured, reach out via our social media or our website at don'tknowmuchaboutfootball.com.
Thanks for joining our journey. Tune in next week for more passionate football stories.
Until then,
Keep the football spirit alive.